You're listening to episode 42, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, directed by Steve Barron. Is it as good as you remember? Let's find out on this episode of Video Vila Podcast. So I really genuinely think Logan is the most in love with this movie. If you cannot see by all of our lovely friends that have joined us for this episode.
I just pulled some.
We're going to pan over and Logan's going to be playing with them.
We'll get into the figures later, but I will say these Playmates ones that I have, they are like I would kill to have these this detailed when I was little and this playable. I would probably never left my room. I mean, to be honest, I would have took them on every family vacation. I mean, you don't, I loved action figures so much. Like when me as an adult to come across like a good playable action figure. I mean, I don't know. I get these like flashbacks of nostalgia and like thoughts of like, what if I had this when I was 8 years old, but now I have it when I'm 35. It's even better.
Still as good as I think it would be. We're just going to do an extended cut and it's just going to be you playing with them.
Yeah. And then I will say, I play with action figures all the time when I was little. Like I was big into action figures. And I remember when I started getting into wrestling, my wrestling figures from my childhood, they're behind me right there. But when I got into wrestling, that was like the best part because then I learned new moves that my action figures and my Batman figures and my Ninja Turtle figures could do. Like, so then they would start doing wrestling moves. So I was like, oh, I can't just do a flying kick now. I could do a suplex or a power bomb. Like it opened the door for even funner, like playtime, whatever. I don't know, funner playtime or whatever you want to call it. But
yeah, makes sense.
I literally.
It broadened your imagination.
You have no idea how big I was into playing with my toys, especially the Ninja Turtles. I have so many fun memories. I mean, we would go on vacation, like Myrtle Beach or something like that, or, like Destin. And I would bring a box, and typically a box would be like a leftover, like Batmobile box that I just had laying in my closet full of toys. And I would bring those on vacation with me, and play. Because I still wanted my toys when I would leave, to go like places and stuff like that when I was little. And every time I went on a long car ride, I had brought at least 2 action figures with me. Every single time. Hell, I cried to my mama when she told me I couldn't bring my action figures to kindergarten. I was like, "What do you mean I can't bring my toys to school?" It was heart-wrenching.
Sad day for Logan.
It was a very sad day. Very sad day. Sometimes I would sneak one, and then I get in trouble.
Oh, yeah. Kids, coming from someone that taught for years, kids sneak in toys and who knows what all the time.
Oh, my God.
All the time.
I can talk about action figures forever, so we'll have to.
I'm well aware.
You have to switch the topic.
Speaking of your wrestling figures over there, we should do like a room tour, a vlog.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Well, I want to there's so much more
of us.
Toys like I want to collect, but y'all can't see the 360, but I've actually literally y'all know I've actually ran out of room in here. So I've tried to come up with better ideas of how to display stuff, but like for example, we're talking about the Teenage Mutant Turtle movie, and then NECA has the phenomenal movie line, which I want to collect them, but literally I ran out of room over here. I don't have any rooms to put any more figures on without putting them in front of other figures and you can't see them, or without taking down my comic books and then putting them behind the figures and stuff like that. So that's one reason why I kind of stopped with these, and the ones up there is because I just ran out of room. I really want them. I found a very good, and I'm an open boxer too. So everything I buy, I open out of the box 9 times out of 10, just because, toys are meant to be played with. And
Yes.
it's okay. You can't talk about Ninja Turtles without talking about the toys. I mean,
Well, yeah.
we that was a huge thing. I mean, like, I'm going to get more into it once we start actually talking about some of the fun facts about the movie and stuff like that. But, I thought, like, yeah, I want to display my toys.
Yeah.
I want to show off a little bit.
Have had it.
But so, like, I grew up with this movie. There is an age difference between me and Becca, but did you really? I mean, have you seen it
Yes.
before, like, as a
Multiple times.
child?
I mean, I don't know if I've seen it as a child.
So okay, that's what
I don't know. I would probably say yes, but not that I don't know off the top of my head.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, because that was like, well, I'm the only reason I was asking because like this was shoot the amount. I feel like there's 2 movies, VHSs that I burned in that VCR, and there was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Batman 1989.
Mine was Babe.
Babe is a great movie.
It's such a cute movie.
Yeah.
I love it.
Do we have it, don't we?
I have it still.
Yeah, that's what
I think
okay.
it came in my case of VHSs from
I
my
think so.
grandma's
I
house.
got the clamshells are behind the camera over there, so I
Yeah.
think they're over there. But yeah, I don't know.
I
Like,
love Babe.
I mean, so
And
like,
Charlotte's Web.
well, what was Did you like any kind of like action cartoon growing up?
No.
No.
I was a very big like Disney kid, so
Okay.
in general.
What cartoons did you watch a lot when you were little?
Courage the Cowardly Dog scared the crap out of me, but I still watched it. Angry Beavers, Real Monsters.
So you were more comedy, yeah.
Well, yeah, and like a lot of for cartoons, there's a lot of like Nickelodeon stuff for several years there, and then I transitioned into like Disney stuff.
I gotcha. Yeah, because I grew up.
Oh yeah, Cat Dog. Oh my gosh, I loved Cat Dog. Loved it.
My grandmother, Gran
Yeah.
hated Cat Dog. She's like, it doesn't make sense, Logan. I'm like, I don't know. I want to watch it though. It comes on at 4 o'clock. Your show's over at 2 o'clock, so I can watch it.
I've rewatched some of it as an adult. And I'm like, still hits for me.
Well, like I used to watch like Cow and Chicken.
Yeah,
that was
Cow and Chicken was another good one.
That was Dexter's Laboratory.
Yeah,
all those like
all
those Cartoon Network ones were amazing. Freaking Powerpuff Girls. You like Powerpuff Girls? That's action.
Yeah, I guess you could say it's action.
Oh no, it's 100% action.
Yeah, I'm a huge Powerpuff Girl fan.
It holds up too. Like if you haven't watched in a while, it holds up.
Yeah, I would say like those beginning years was a mix of Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network because I definitely like just ate Powerpuff Girls up. But yeah, it wasn't until like pre-teen-ish years that then I moved into like Disney type shows.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, like when you start going to like more like the live action stuff.
Yeah, rather than the cartoon type things.
Yeah. I mean, I was a big into like cartoons growing up. I mean, I'd watch the Ninja Turtles, but mind you, the thing is, the crazy thing, I was watching the reruns of the Ninja Turtles. Ninja Turtles, by the time I believe I was watching them, in theory, they were off the air. They had already been canceled. But I'd been watching the reruns. Same thing with the Real Ghostbusters.
Same thing with Gilligan's Island.
Oh, I love Gilligan's Island.
It was so good.
I Dream of Jeannie and Bewitched and Beverly Hillbillies.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's funny because like literally like a lot of the stuff I remember watching when I was a child, like they were all reruns.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there was some new stuff like I think Imagine that. No, I can't remember. It was Max or something like that. I mean, Mighty Max. I think that was original at the time when I was watching it. Street Sharks, which was basically a teenage
Street Fighter Sharks.
No, just Street Sharks.
Yeah, I know, but they were Street Fighter Sharks. Like they were like the Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
They were like Street Fighters.
They were yeah. I mean, I guess.
Yeah.
Not really, but okay. They came on after Street Fighter. I remember that on the USA Network.
Then what would you define them as?
They're just called Street Sharks.
Where would they fight?
Wherever there was a fight. Sometimes they fight on a pier. Sometimes they fight in a factory. Sometimes they fight in a bowling alley.
Okay. I think you were taking what I was saying a little literal. Like a little too literal.
But yeah, it's funny. Like, it's like
you also like Samurai Jack.
Oh yeah, I love Samurai Jack.
We tried rewatching.
Yeah, that was an older one. That was one where I was like that was like Samurai Jack and Batman Beyond. Those two were like chef's kiss. Like I couldn't wait to watch the new episodes on Friday. But yeah,
Dragon Ball Z.
You gotta stop bringing up things for me to talk
Yeah, I'm
about.
done. Normally, I cut him off from these tangents, and
But you're
today
just setting me up. You're like,
Yeah.
you're setting me up to run.
I know. Winding me up.
But yeah, so back to Ninja Turtles. Okay, so like I grew up with this. Like this was a big part of my life. My first bedroom set that I can remember was a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle set. When I say set, like comforter and stuff like that. I had Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle rug when you walked in my bedroom. I loved the action figures. Unfortunately, I never collected the original. I never had all of the original 4. I never had Shredder. I didn't get those till like later in life. Like I remember it was much well past the Turtles being on TV. They weren't even showing them the episodes. They weren't even showing reruns anymore on TV at this point. They had been off TV, and just like Ollie's, which Ollie's is very well known for having like great older toys that no one like kind of discontinued toys. Big Lots. So that's Big Lots. I don't know if you have a Big Lots by your house now. More than likely, it's not the Big Lots it used to be like almost 30 years ago. Big Lots was the mecca. Like, I mean, I'm talking like it was the place where I would always get the best toys, and they were always dirt cheap. And then that means I could have got 2. It's because that was the best thing. Is like if I went to KB Toys, I could only walk away with 1 toy. But 9 times 10, if I went in Big Lots, I was walking out with some RoboCop and some Godzilla toys because it was like literally 2 for the price of 1.
Yeah.
And I was able to collect the entire first run of the Ninja Turtles buying on my Big Lots. All the entire, except for the only one I didn't have was I did not have April. But everybody else, the first wave, I had them all. And when we went back home to Tennessee, I go, Mom, where's my Ninja Turtles at? I went to go looking for them. And somehow those boxes are mysteriously gone. And I don't know whatever happened to them. She says she didn't throw them out, but she's lied to me before in the past. If you listen to this, Mom, I know you have. But I don't know where they went, It does suck because I had all of them and I kept them in a box, like shoe boxes with accessories. So I just make sure that, because I was older by the time, because I was watching Ninja Turtles when I was like 5. And this is when I was like, probably 8 or 9. So like was a little bit more mature to like, okay, no, I need to keep track of this because I don't want to dig through my cubbies to find it or whatever. But yeah, this movie. So not only did the toy line like resonate with me so much as part of my childhood, the movie did. Like this movie, like I said, I burnt this thing up. I mean, the cartoon came out in 87, the comic came back out in 84, and then the movie came out in 1990. So it was like this domino effect. Like we got hit with the comic book. Okay, obviously it was too little to read it at the time because I wasn't even born. But it show's not scripted. So if it was scripted, I probably would have said something so stupid.
It's fine.
But it comes out, does gangbusters. I mean, literally, like I'm talking about, like so, like just kept on that. And when it came out, it was really just 1 issue, and it was just they kept on reprinting the first issue, which technically the entire movie is the first issue of the comic, and like broken up basically. And then after that, they had the IP, and they were going to try to make it more profitable and make a line of toys. Which they did. They got with Playmates, and they were able to make a very large successful line of toys, but they would not issue the toys, not give them a deal, unless they had some way to market the toys. And then that's where the cartoon show came out. I believe it was they signed up for a 5 or 6 episode deal, so they could sell the toys, because that was the formula back in the day. That's what He-Man did, and G.I. Joes and so forth. They basically created an entire toy line. To sell the toys, you needed the cartoon. The cartoon was only made just to sell the toys. But then you find out people actually liked the cartoon, and people showed up for the cartoon, and then that allowed them to buy more toys because they could create more characters. We lived through one of the craziest times. I mean, Turtle Mania was ridiculous. I mean, you couldn't go anywhere at the time without, seeing Ninja Turtle T-shirt. You go in the arcade, there'd be Ninja Turtle video games. There at the comic book stores, there'd be Ninja Turtle comics. We got the movie in 1990. I mean, literally, it was everywhere. Belts, walkie-talkies. I mean, the slang, kids run around saying Cowabunga and all that kind of stuff. It's turtle time. Like, it was such a craze, and it's, I know it's crazy to go back and rewatch that kind of stuff because you really don't know how much of an impact just a independent comic book made. I mean, yes, the cartoon was a big success, almost I would say more successful than the comic book, but the fact that the cartoon was derived from the comic book. You know, we wouldn't have had the cartoon if we didn't have the comic book. Hell, I mean, I remember one time at Baltimore Comic-Con, I actually went to meet Kevin Eastman, and it sucks because it was a very, very, very long line. Okay, I had been at the con all day, and it was a timed autograph session. You had to line up at a certain time, and this is like probably early into my con year, so maybe I thought I might have only been gone to, like, this might have been my third Baltimore Comic-Con. So, I mean, I was still kind of learning the ropes, and also con life now is much different than it was when I was first started going to it. But I remember I got my poster out. I was ready to meet him. It was the big deal because this was the year, like the previous year we had Stan Lee. This year he was the mecca. He was the guy that everyone wanted to meet. I get in line and it sucks. As soon as I walk up to the line, the freaking person at the Comic-Con was like, wait a minute. Oh, line's cut off. I'm like, what do you mean lines cut off? They're like, there's like lines cut off. They're like, and at that point in time, like, when I ever wanted to meet someone, I got to meet them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't run into a situation where they're like, no, we're going to stop the line at a certain time.
Yeah.
And like not allow you to get in line. Mind you, he hadn't even started signing yet. So this was before they even opened the doors for him to sign. They just already they basically waited to the line to get to a certain point and they just cut it off because sometimes at cons they do it, and I get like probably people that work at cons, they're probably like screaming at me behind the screen, like, well, you don't understand. It's crazy. It's hectic, blah, blah, blah. But still, it sucks the fact that like to cut someone off before someone even starts to sign.
Yeah.
I get if they've been signing for like, 30 minutes. You're like, okay, this is probably another 30 minutes. We'll cut it off.
Yeah.
But he hadn't even started signing yet. So I was pretty pissed off, and I remember being like really upset. And then when I was leaving, a guy like, he's like, hey, he was like shooed me over. He was like, hey, just give me what you want to sign, and you can just meet me outside. And he was like, he's like, I'll get it signed for you, promise. I won't keep it, whatever. Because you had to pay for it. It wasn't like it was free or anything like that. And he was just like, you can just pay me when I drop it off to you. And I was like, no, it's okay. And not only this guy was being very sweet, but like, I mean, it does suck. And I was just like, no, don't worry. I didn't want to hassle someone with something like that. So, but ever since then, I've never been able to come across him. And I don't believe he's made a return to the Baltimore Comic-Con. So that does suck. Because it is like, it is a part of my childhood to meet the characters that created the Turtles that I love so much, and this movie is, I also started saying like, this movie is awesome. I love it so, so much. I actually am I am a little different because I actually like the second one more. It is more kiddie, so it made more sense for me to enjoy it more as a child.
Well, yeah.
Because this one is pretty dark, didn't you think? I thought it was pretty dark.
It's not terrible. I mean,
well, people like die in it for it to be labeled as like a kid's movie. That's pretty crazy for a live action death and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, meh.
You got nothing?
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of children's movies where people die, live action movies, and people die, even though it's kids' movies. I
don't know. I just don't feel like there's, to be honest, as far as a lot of violence-related children movies that have a lot of deaths in them. I don't feel like there is, though. But
this doesn't have a lot of deaths in them.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, to a certain degree, like it was, I understand because that was one of the biggest problems with the movie when they were making the movie. They couldn't really get the rights to some of the cartoon characters, but they had full rights to the comic. Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, they helped write a script for the movie, and basically, obviously that script evolved over time, but it was a little bit different, and it wasn't the same as actually the comic itself. They kind of derived from they pulled from the comic book, but didn't actually do like a comic based storyline. When Stephen Barron actually got on the project, he's like, no, I want to make the comic book into the movie, which they were very shocked by that because the comic book is extremely dark. It is very bloody. Mind you, it's drawn in black and white, but like Shredder dies in the first issue. Like he gets straight up murdered at the end of it, and they don't even care. It's definitely much different than the cartoon. So that's why they were getting a lot backlash, because they didn't understand how can this cute cartoon show with funny jokes and pizza loving turtles be so dark, because a lot of people didn't actually understand the full source of where the information was coming from, the actual comic. Which the movie is a very well interpretation of the comic. Yes, there's things that are different, and I'll point out a couple of those things once we actually go through the movie. But I mean, it was definitely a very close rendition of the comic without the gore that's been in the comic. The turtles you brought up. Street Sharks, stuff like that. I mean, there was this opened up a tons of like rip-offs, or it opened the door spin-offs for like animal-based characters, kind of like when we did the Gremlins, that opened up for critters and hobgoblins and ghoulies. I mean, I wrote down some of my favorites, but like Biker Mice from Mars, which we just got some new action figures of those, and those are super badass. Street Sharks you brought up, which we got new action figures of those.
You brought them up.
Oh, I brought them up. But yeah, Street Sharks. Then you had Stone Protectors. Those were really super badass, just like the Turtles, but they were like kind of like troll based, but they also were like ninjas kind of. Cowboys of Mubasa was one of my all-time favorites. I used to watch it before going to I think it was first grade or kindergarten. I watched that a lot. That was really cool. And then Battletoads, and one of my favorites as an adult, because I actually didn't see it when it was airing, but Toxic Avenger. The Toxic Crusaders, the kid version of the Trauma Toxic Avenger, which I have the new Super 7 Toxie right here, which I think is one of the most beautiful toys I think I own. Like it is so freaking cool. And the cartoon is amazing. And it was like the Turtles, but to be honest, it had a message, because he is a toxic crusader. So he has been mutated by toxic chemicals, but he's fighting to keep the earth green and rid the world of toxic chemicals. It's really, really cool, but unfortunately only lasted one season because of Hollywood. And, it was in a small independent studio. But, that's a whole nother story. But I did want to bring him out because, we wouldn't have had the Toxic Crusaders if it wasn't for the Ninja Turtles, which also Toxic Crusaders coming out with there's a new video game, Beat 'em Up, which is, still can't wait for that to come out. But so like when they were making this movie, when Steve Barron was in charge of it, he actually ended up getting fired towards the end of making the film. They basically had finished the movie and ran out of funding. Originally, they were going to try to make the movie for about $11 million. Then that $11 million turned into $12 million. Then it turned into $13.5 million. And at the end, they were going through studio to studio to give them a little bit extra money. Like, can you give us some money to help us finish the film? Because there was 2 more scenes or so they wanted to shoot to give it this, to fit their vision that they had for the film. And after going to studio, they even went to Disney, and Disney was like, no, I don't think so. After they multiple cuts of the film, and after they basically turned them down, the studio ended up firing Steve Barron, and for the fact that they thought when he actually got his hands on doing the final edits that he would make the film way too dark and they wouldn't be able to sell it. Basically, like sell tickets, because no one was going to take their children's to see this movie that was so violent. I mean, Jim Henson's ended up doing the turtle makeup and the suits and stuff like that, but he also needed to be convinced, because he read the script and he's like, this script is way too violent and I don't condone violence.
Yeah.
But he needed some talk to, like, no, it's not they're ninjas and they're fighting crime, but it's not the kind of violence, it's not the senseless violence.
Yeah.
It's violence with a purpose. And after they kind of talk to him and explain the whole like what the turtles represent, he finally got on board, and he agreed to do the suits. With the suits, I mean, I thought they looked amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think there's some of the most best special effects suits.
Oh, yeah, they're really good.
Yeah, I mean, some of their animatronics, like the mouths, don't really match up. But to be honest, like as far as do they look like the turtles, they look like the freaking turtles.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to think that they look like the turtles back in 1990 when like, it's at that point in time when you saw superhero movies, and movies based off comic books, they didn't have a good rep. I mean, at that point in time, the only really successful one was like Superman 1.
Mm-hmm.
But every other Superman after that, they didn't really do so well. And then Superman 4 just came out that Canon did, and it was awful.
Yeah.
So like at that point, Masters of the Universe, toy line, comics, stuff like that didn't do well either, also made by Canon. So it was very hard to get this movie up and made, but it's crazy. So the movie cost $13.5 million to make after they finally were able to get the funding and make the film that they wanted to make. This movie that they were worried about that no one was going to see and they thought was way too dark, ended up turning around and making over $200 million in return. It was the most successful independent film of all time until The Blair Witch.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. That's crazy.
It's crazy that the Blair Witch did that good.
Well, the Blair Witch, the fact that like it costs like nothing to make that movie, and the fact that everyone, I mean, and that was for like, so the fact that like literally like a movie that literally costs, I think,
I mean, you saw the town it was filmed in. Me and Graham drove you through it.
Yeah.
It's not much there.
But it's crazy the fact that like, yeah, just two people with cameras and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people, I think a lot of people were just locals and stuff like that they filmed.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good film. I've seen it multiple times.
No,
it's still crazy that it did.
It's crazy how many people wanted to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. I get that. I mean, because you're not working with children, you're working with adults, but horror does sell, especially it had a really good marketing campaign.
Oh, yeah. There's so many small, like, niches of groups under, like, the horror genre that there's something for everybody.
But the really good thing is, like, the reason why this movie actually was successful because Sally, I believe it was Sally Mink, came on to the project to be the final editor after they fired Stephen Barron, and she was able to whip up what they had because they didn't have a complete film, and she was able to re-edit it and make a complete film so they can actually put it in theaters. And she went on to be famous because she is Quentin Tarantino's #1 editor. So obviously, like, she knows what she's doing. But literally, like back in 1990, she signed on to this little independent film to help edit it, and which is. Now she has this huge successful career. Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of things that does come from when people talk about the success of the Turtles, they're like, well, it only did well because of Batman. They just jumped on the tails of Batman, which wasn't actually true. They were actually started making this movie same time that Tim Burton hadn't even started the production of his Batman movie. So it just so happens like Batman just came out earlier than this movie. And so a lot of people want to make that assumption that like, oh, well, Batman did, I think that made, over $300 million. But like that wasn't the case. Like this actually just did well on its own. And it wasn't a like cash grab, like because Batman did so well. It just so happened to come out a little bit later after Batman.
Yeah.
I mean, this, we're going to have to start talking about the movie, but it was funny. Like, so like, you're in, Becca's really into Facebook groups and stuff like that. She's got a group for everything. And so like, I actually joined a Facebook group, a couple of years ago. And it was a Ninja Turtle Facebook group because I really do like, and the new movie was coming out and I just wanted to stay on top of everything and so forth like that. So I joined, a Teenage Mutant Turtle new group, and I had to actually end up leaving the group because, so I don't know if people were doing it on purpose, but like, well, obviously they were doing it on purpose but I don't know if they were trolling or if they just thought that's what the group was for, but it started to get bogged down with just adult Ninja Turtle content.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if they were trolling, but the admins kept on like adding, like getting it taken down. But like every single day, there was some kind of adult
content within
either
the
it be
Turtles, yeah.
either it be comic related, or I mean there is adult. Well, I don't think you say the PORN word on YouTube. It's
No.
probably not good to say.
Yeah.
Anyway, there is a lot of that out there, and they were just uploading stills.
The internet has everything.
Don't get me wrong.
Imagine.
I thought it was very funny, but it was like every single day, and then you would read the comments.
Well, with AI now, they're doing it too with all these different characters and stuff like that.
Yeah. Because this was also
left and right.
This is also when AI generated art just started.
Yeah.
Like this is like it's in the same time. Like some was real, some was actual real drawn stuff that people had probably done in like Adobe Illustrator or something like that. But some of it was like actually just AI generated stuff.
Yeah.
And it was funny, but after a little while, you're like, all right, I'm tired of seeing a bunch of green titties.
Yeah.
But I mean, I will stop talking and stop gushing over the Turtles. But let's find out. Is it as good? Is it as good as we remember as Becca reads the back of the box?
So I'll go ahead and read the reviews first because we have 3 of those on the back right before the summary. Charm the shell out of me, the most original idea in years. The most popular heroes this side of the Batcave. Jim Henson's done a spectacular job in bringing the Turtles to life. Now you can catch America's favorite green teens in their first live-action blockbuster film. After waiting in a puddle of radioactive waste, these radical reptiles are transformed into New York City's greatest crime-fighting quartet. Featuring hot new music by MC Hammer, this film will captivate adults and kids alike with its blend of humor, camaraderie, and martial arts action. Don't miss this blockbuster movie. You'll have one shell of a good time. I know you love puns.
Puns are the best. Puns are like dad jokes. You can't live life without them.
Oh, whoops.
You're fine.
Jack that up. Okay. Ready to kick it off?
Yeah.
There's never like a good sequence from like the summary into like, okay,
a good
let's
transition,
talk about it. Yeah.
There's like, it's like when I'll say something and you're like, yep. And I go like, what do you think, Becca? It's good. Or like, I don't have anything to say. It's like, all right, well, I thought that was going to be a nice, smooth transition, a new conversation. Never.
So the movie opens up and you, with a news report regarding crime happening in NYC. So it's going over, there's been a lot of influx of crime in New York City, and it's pretty much made radio headlines at that point.
Yeah, it's basically, if I remember correctly, it's April. I believe April. Yeah, it's April. She's doing the news, and we basically, as we're hearing the news report, we're seeing a bunch of things being stolen.
Yeah,
and it looks like almost like children.
Yeah,
children. And like we actually
teens.
Yeah. Sorry, children. Yeah, teens. We see one of our characters for the first time. We're going to see him later. Find out. He might be someone else.
Yeah.
That might be actually close to the Turtles to a certain point. We'll find that out later. But yeah, it opens up with basically just a bunch of people getting their car radio stolen, and people like getting CD players, and it's just basically a bunch of kind of like hoodlums vandalizing things and stealing stuff.
So, April, after doing this newscast, because she is a news reporter, she is leaving work and she's heading out, and it's late at night, and she's heading to her van, which is where she gets mugged. So she walks up on them stealing stuff, and so they attack her and try to steal her purse. And it is all interrupted by Ninja Turtles, but they don't know that. So I was trying to figure out, like, secretively, it was interrupted by the Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, basically what
they cut the street light.
Yeah, and that was one of the scenes that they couldn't film. They had to get away around it because they ran out of funding, and they didn't have the money to actually film this sequence with them fighting it. So that was one of the things that they did, is they found a way to, we'll just make the street light go out, and then we'll just cut to blackness, and you'll just hear the sounds, and so we don't have to actually come up with the funding to actually shoot these scenes. Which I think it works really well. It's kind of cool because we don't really we're not introduced to the Turtles just yet, and really it's just one turtle. It's Ralph, basically. And, he ends up leaving a sai at the, is it a sai? Is that what it's called? Yeah, I think that's what it's called.
Yeah, I mean, a small sword.
Well, I think it's called a sai. But he ends up leaving one of his weapons there after he saves saves April, and it cuts to the sewers. And now the music's starting to kick in, and we
Yeah.
start to actually get introduced to the Ninja Turtles, and we get
Yeah.
a nice little splash scene of the Ninja Turtle logo splashing up on the front of the scene, which is very kiddish. Like there's a lot of things in this movie that are still portraying to the children.
Yeah.
There's a lot of the comic from like I said, there's a lot in the movie that's from the comics, but they still kept the pizza related, the fact that they like pizza from the not comic book, sorry, from the cartoon, because that wasn't in the comic. They kept the multiple colors, just like the cartoon. They added their catchphrases into the movie, and the way that they act was they kept that just like the cartoon. So there was essence of the cartoon, but the story itself was driven from the comic book.
Yeah. So you now also, they take you down to like their den in the sewage, and this is where you get to meet Splinter as well, which he just looks so just like raggedy. And I mean, I remember what he looked like, but it didn't really hit until that scene came up, and his like long bony fingers.
Yeah, I always thought he looked so brittle. Like,
yeah, he does. Yeah. I think that's the point. Like, he's very aged and brittle.
Yeah, and old. Yeah.
Yeah, like a wise man type gig. But yeah, he's I wouldn't say he's cute.
Yeah, I think he's cute. His face is cute.
Maybe a little.
Not his eyes. His eyes are gross.
He looks like those like Chinese crested dogs.
I don't know what that is.
I'll show you, and we can put one here. We'll put a side by side with Splinter and a Chinese crested. I swear it's gonna be worth it. But they also get pizza delivered, and they're super hyped about that. And where they live, one, it's in the sewer, so obviously it's a little dingy. But also, like their house, their den or whatever, looks a little dingy to begin with.
Well,
altogether.
yeah,
and that's the whole point, and that's always been kind of the point of the Ninja Turtles.
Well, yeah, it's the atmosphere. I mean, they live in the sewer, but it's like, okay, it's like, how would a kid make a fort if they lived in the sewer? Kind of like, it's like, you get what you get. Like they have an old crappy couch down there. I don't know how they're getting power down there to watch the TV and stuff. But yeah, so we get Mikey and Donatello, and they're ordering pizza, which when he bought the movie, it was $24.99. It came with $20 Pizza Hut coupons. Pizza Hut spent, I think it was $20 million. Maybe it wasn't 20 million, or was it 20,000? They spent a shitload. I'll put it here for whatever it was, but they spent a shitload of money in advertisement for the Ninja Turtles. Hell, even when you plug in it, if you've seen the VHS, you know what I'm talking about. After we get the FHE logo, it cuts into the Pizza Hut commercial at the baseball game.
Yeah.
Samwise was there. Not Samwise. Oh, shoot. I forget what his name is. But anyway, the guy from Heavyweights, he's even the catcher in the commercial. Sean Wise. Yes, Sean Wise. But yeah, he's actually the catcher in the commercial. I think when Joe and Sean talked to him, I think Sean brought up that commercial or something like that. I could be wrong.
I wasn't in that conversation.
Oh, you didn't watch it. It was I already watched it. But yeah, anyway, so what's called, it's crazy the fact, like, you expect it to be Pizza Hut because they were the mecca at the time.
Yeah.
But it's Domino's or whatever. But so we get the funny scene with them slipping the Domino's pizza down the pizza drain and so forth.
And while this is going on, Ralph goes to go see a movie to kind of blow off some steam.
Yeah, he's going to see Critters 2. And when he leaves the movie, he's like, "Where did I come up with this stuff?" And he's obviously doesn't like it. It's very funny because recently there's been going around the Critters 2 Teenage Mutant Turtle cut, where like when Ralph goes to the movie theater, it cuts to, you just start watching Critters 2, and when it ends, you just get back to the TMNT. I believe that's what Chris did at the Midnight Madness. That was pretty cool. But yeah, so he comes out, and it's really cool because when he's leaving, he's walking through the park or whatever, and we get introduced to another fan favorite, Casey Jones, one of the coolest characters. And he was such a badass in the show. And he was also badass in the comic, but he was such a badass in the
He's
show.
also a badass in Chicago PD.
Yeah. I was like, when he shows up, I'm like, when he shows up, because that's Becca likes all the Chicago shows she really likes. But I was like, look who it is. That's your buddy. And you didn't know because he's so young looking. He has hair and he looks different.
But he still talks the same.
Yeah.
And after you get a good look at him, you're like, he still looks the same, just without the long hair.
Yeah. But you're like, oh, it's funny because you got all like, not like dreamy eye, but you got like a little like spark in your eye. And you're happy to see him in the movie.
Oh, no, I just find that funny to think that like he is still, I mean, I don't know when the last season of Chicago PD was filmed, but he's still like relevant. Is just that kind of stuff blows my mind to think that like,
he still has a career?
Well, no, not just that, but like, or his career started, way back when. And it's just kind of crazy to just piece those things together because I don't think I've seen him in anything else.
I mean, he's not been, like, he's been in movies. Don't get me wrong. He's still been making movies and stuff like that. But like, when I think about him, whenever I see him, I just think of Ninja Turtles, Casey Jones. Because that's what I first saw him as, and that's all he'll be in my head.
Yeah.
Is Casey Jones.
And also all the times you've sat there while I've watched PD and you've never been like, that guy's in the Ninja Turtle movie.
Well, I don't know. I just never think about tell you. But yeah, so him and Casey Jones, they basically get into altercation, not realizing that they're both on the same side. But, and it's funny because he doesn't really understand that Ralph's a giant turtle. He thinks he's in a suit.
Yeah.
Which is funny because that's the whole point. He's like, earlier the Splinter was like, you are ninjas. You're meant to be not seen.
Yeah.
And Ralph kind of is not doing the best job at doing that.
Yeah, obviously. They keep putting themselves in scenarios where they're going to get caught, and that really like stresses out Splinter. Yeah,
it's just kind of like he's like, his job was ever since you were children and you grew up, my job is to keep you safe.
Yeah. Just essentially like any parent. He's like, he's their parent.
Yeah. I mean, and I also like, the brand new movie, the Mutant Mayhem. I mean, it was very good. Our son Grayson loved it. He used to watch that.
It was a cute movie.
Yeah. But the thing is, I really like the way they did that in that one.
Yeah.
It was really like, and I thought it was great that they got Jackie Chan to be Splinter. But I really liked how, the father complex in that one, how he looked after him. I thought that was really well done. But yeah, so like, anyway, he comes back and, he's really having a hard time with what's going on. He beats up on himself a lot. He kind of like, he wants to be perfect.
Yeah.
And he's a smart ass. He's rough on the edges, but he really buys into the ninja thing, and he's trying to do the best Raphael he can be. And whenever he kind of slips up, it really lets him down. If he loses a fight, he really gets upset.
Yeah.
If he, like the fact that he lost his sai, he was really upset about that, stuff like that. And then basically Splinter just has to explain to him, like, you need to calm down. You need to relax. It cuts to the next day. And now we're at April's house, and she is basically she's getting ready for work, and her boss Charles pays her a visit, and he's like, you need to be careful because she's been talking about the Foot Clan. It's very dangerous.
She's determined to figure out who they are and get justice because she is essentially over it and finds it ridiculous that these kids are doing this, and she would like the city to essentially be a safe place, but with them out there, it can't be like that. However, Charles would like her boss at the news station would like her chill the heck out and essentially leave it alone.
Yeah, she's like, you've already been mugged once. She's like, I wasn't mugged, I was saved. I'm just like, but the fact is, because she's got a bruise on her head that she needs to cover up with makeup. And he was like, but you got lucky this time. Who's to say you're not going to get lucky? Who's to say you're going to get lucky the second time?
Yeah.
And then we get to meet a character that we saw earlier in the film, Danny, which is Charles' son, which, Lord behold, he is a member of the Foot Clan. New member. He hasn't fully put on the uniform yet, but he is being, what's that word?
Initiated.
What's that word when someone looks after you? Is it coddling? What's the word? Grooming. They've been grooming him to be a Foot Clan member. And so basically, Charles is telling April to knock it off with the Foot Clan investigation. She doesn't want to listen to him.
And essentially, Charles also, in his mind, he's like, I have my hands full because, like, I have a delinquent kid because his kid's always just, like, up to no good.
Yeah.
And he just needs, like, one less thing to stress him out, which means April just needs to, like, drop this whole
Yeah, and
thing.
she said, the mayor's been on my ass about this. You need to drop it. Cut to later, after she gets to work and starts interviewing
She does not drop it.
the chief, ends up interviewing Chief Stern. She doesn't drop it, brings it up on live television, which basically is, she's doing exactly what she's told not to do.
Yeah.
And it's starting to have people, take word of her.
Yeah.
And pay a little bit more attention to her. So after her interview with Chief Stern, after that, she goes to his office and he reams her out. He's like, what Foot Clan are you talking about? I'm trying to sit there and make people think that they're safe at their homes. And you're ruining all that talking about this Foot Clan. And she's just like, well, the people need to know what's happening. And his odd point is like, I'm going to need to keep people safe and so forth. And basically, you're ruining that by telling those stories of this old Chinese.
The information we're giving is obviously contradicting.
Not Chinese, Japanese clan that originated Japan that came here to the U.S. or whatever. So basically, he shoos her out of his office, and she's going home, and she heads her way to the bus stop and runs in to legit Foot Clan members in their uniform.
Yeah.
And basically they tell her, you need to watch your mouth, Miss O'Neill. I have a present for you. And then he smacks the shit out of her. He's like, shut it.
Yeah.
And once again, who comes to her savior? But Raphael.
Yeah, so now twice he saves her, but this time because she's like knocked out essentially, he takes her to their hideout. Or like their home, and she's unconscious, and she wakes up and thinks that she's dreaming. She's like, oh my gosh, I see turtles and a rat, and I saw you in the subway, and she's trying to like piece together why she's even seeing what she's seeing, essentially. And she's starting to panic and everything, but Splinter is trying to calm her down and tell her, I'm gonna tell you what's going on and who we are, but I need you to calm down first. So she calms down, and Splinter pretty much explains who he is, that he, found the turtles when they were little and they were in this goo, and they essentially developed to who they are now, and he helped train them to be ninjas, and kind of just like goes on in my opinion, a very long tangent that I didn't fully listen to. I know the gist of it. I've seen the movie multiple times. The tangent never changes.
Basically, yes, he goes into their origin story, and which is basically, if you know,
in his origin story, partially.
Not yet. No,
not
we get
fully,
that later.
But yeah, partially.
Yeah. So he goes in the origin story and starts explaining what the turtles are. And if you know about the turtles were basically people will say spoof, but I won't say spoof because stupidly spoof is to make fun of. I would best say the words were inspired by, but the Ninja Turtles were inspired by Daredevil. The same toxic chemical that blinded Daredevil also splattered onto some turtles inside the sewer that also gave them their abilities. And Splinter is inspired by Stick, which was Daredevil's mentor, and also, the foot being their inspiration was the hand from Daredevil. So it's technically in theory, the comic book theory, and they say it is canon, but that the Ninja Turtles, the original comic book run, does take place in the same universe as Daredevil, even though it's not a Marvel comics IP, but it does take place in the same universe. And that is, how they're explaining what's going on in the movie is how it happens in the comic book. It's pretty close, not the exact same way, but it's pretty close to the cartoon as well. But yeah, we get the cool little scenes of them transitioning and stuff like that, and from the little babies into the new mutant turtles that they are. He talks about how you teach them ninjutsu and so forth. The fight style of the ninja,
moment where they talk and they're like pizza,
radical. Yeah, that's really cute.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's so basically, long story short, she calms down, listens to their story, and she's like, well, I've had a long day. Can y'all take me home?
Yeah.
So they go through the sewer to find where she lives, and they show her how to get to her house through the sewer. And we get to her apartment, and basically she's like, she goes, I would invite you up, but all I have is frozen pizza, which they
Of
said,
course they're down for that.
yeah, exactly. The magic word is pizza. So they spring up out of the, out of the sewer to go to April's apartment. She lives on top of an antique store that her dad used to own. And, we see scenes of them bonding and so forth. And they're there for a couple hours, I would say. And now they head back. Well, little do they know, when they went back the first time, when Ralph took her there, a Foot Clan followed him.
Yeah.
Foot Clan member followed him. And now
Splinter's
gone.
So they find out that Splinter's gone, and they return back to April's house because they want to tell her what happened, and because also they, obviously kind of know who did it, that it was a Foot Clan member, or at least had some involvement in that. So April allows them to at least stay the night with her, and they can start to kind of piece this together tomorrow. However, she is woken up by her boss, Charles, and his son, Danny, at her door to check on her. And in checking on her, they pretty much, or not Danny, but Charles wants to tell her, like, for real now, like, knock it off, or
Yeah. So
this needs to stop completely.
So one scene that we got before this was basically Danny had been arrested, and that the chief had called Charles, and because he found out who Danny's father was. It was like, hey, listen here, I'll let your son out. We don't see this scene, but that's what's implied. I'll let your son out, but you need to stop this Foot Clan stuff. You need to tell April O'Neil to stop it.
Yeah.
So he's very adamant about, you need to stop it.
Yeah.
I'm telling you now, as your boss, you need to knock it the fuck off.
Yeah. So, but the thing is, because he was knocking on her door and the turtles were there, she kind of shoos the turtles to go hide. And Danny and Charles are kind of walking around her apartment while she's trying to get ready. And you get a moment where Danny thinks he sees Mikey in the mirror under the table, but Mikey hurry up and hides by the time Danny turns around, looks under the table. And then Charles goes to get April a towel from the shower to dry her face, but then there's one of the turtles in the shower. So it's kind of like very chaotic. So she ends up kind of shooing Charles and Danny on their way to get out of the house. She's like, okay, just saying anything just to get him out.
Yeah, so Charles ends up leaving with Danny, and he ends up driving to work, and he's going off on Danny. He's like, I don't understand why you're stealing, because I make well enough money to pay for you to have a new, new tape player and stuff like that. Like, it makes no sense. Why would you steal that? He's like, I don't know. And then he ends up, they stopping at it like in traffic in New York. He just ends up gets out and takes off.
Yeah.
And we follow him to the Foot Clan headquarters, which basically it's just basically kids doing things that they're gambling, they're smoking cigars, they're playing video games,
fighting each other,
they're smoking cigarettes. It reminds me of that scene of Pinocchio.
It's like a kid's fight club.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, it's exactly
it
what
literally
it
is a kid's fight club. And we get to introduce to Tetsu and Shredder for the first time. Shredder comes in, basically explains to them that, I'm your daddy now. You're all part of my family.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And, part of this family is by doing what I tell you to do. But in doing what I tell you to do, I'll take care of you.
Yeah, you'll earn an official spot on the clan.
Exactly. Basically, it's that called like kind of,
mentality.
Like I said, once again, grooming. He's grooming these kids to be basically assassins.
Yeah.
Just straight up assassins. Well, I mean, not assassin. I don't know if they're paying people for murder. But what I'm saying, he's training these kids to be criminals, basically. Yeah. Shredder asked, I need to find these turtles. Any help that y'all give me would be greatly appreciated. And Danny ends up raising his hand.
Emerges from the crowd, and raises his hand.
He raises his hand. And he's like, honestly, he knows where the turtles are at.
Yeah.
So now it cuts over back to April's house. While she's doing the news, she ends up going over more information that she's not supposed to be talking about. And like I said, doing exactly what she was not supposed to be doing, and brings up the Foot Clan again. And then the chief ends up calling out Charles and ends up reaming him a new one. In the meantime, Leo and Ralph end up getting in a fight. and basically have an argument how they need to handle things because
Yeah.
he's really upset that Splinter's gone. He's like, we need to stop sitting around here and we need to get off our butts
Yeah.
and do something. And Leonardo, being the leader, is like, no, we need to come up with a plan and work out this the proper way so we don't get hurt and we can save Splinter safely. He doesn't agree, goes off to the roof, blows off some steam.
Yeah. Air fighting.
Yeah. Literally, we did find out then also Casey Jones is across the street just somehow and sees
Yeah.
Raphael again, just randomly, but then he also sees the Foot Clan.
Yeah.
So Ralph gets beat up really bad, okay? And then the Foot Clan ends up throwing Ralph into the skyline, which he falls through. And now the fight continues inside the apartment. And they come in with weapons and they're beating the apartment to shreds with the weapons. They end up basically the floor ends up collapsing, which I remember that a lot when I was little because it was just, I remember just like, seeing the floor being chopped up and stuff like that. It's one of the scenes I hated the most because it stressed me out as being a kid. Just like it's very, there's a lot of tension in the scene. But yeah, they end up falling through the ground. Now they're in the antique store, and Casey Jones comes in to help out. And meantime, by the time he gets there, now the apartment's on fire.
Yeah.
And April has showed up, and basically everything's going to hell. April knows that there's a special escape route for some reason. There's
like a little wood panel on the wall.
Yeah, I don't know why.
They find, and essentially they all escape through it while Casey is kind of the last person to go through. He kind of fends everyone off, and then they all go through the escape panel inside the wall. Yeah,
and so basically they know obviously the sewer's compromised, April's house is compromised, and now April. Dad has a house in the country, so they know, obviously, they don't know where that's at.
Yeah.
So, and mind you, Ralph is beat to hell. He is fucked up. So they take Ralph and all them, and they're going to head to that the farmhouse and stay there while Ralph recuperates.
Yeah. So Leo also is taking this really hard. He thinks it's his fault that Ralph got hurt because Leonardo and Raphael got into a big fight, and that's essentially why Raphael went to the rooftop to begin with. And ultimately, they obviously have come to terms with like they can't fight this on their own per se. They really need to hone in and come together and figure out a plan. So they do what Splinter taught them, which is to, stay calm and to meditate through it for answers on how to save Splinter, essentially.
Yeah, because they're tore up. I mean, this is their daddy.
Yeah.
And that's their daddy, and he's in really rough shape, and they want to save him, but they're like, well, how can we save him when we could barely fight the Foot
them
Clan
ourselves? Yeah,
exactly. So they end up doing this, like, I don't know what you call it, like spirit meditation or whatever.
Yeah, to talk to Splinter to try to figure out where he's at, how do they proceed with this really daunting task, essentially. So the first thing they do is they head back to the sewer. So they head back to where they came from. However, in doing that, they also run into Danny.
Yeah, so Danny basically has kind of been having a what's the word to look at? Like a change of heart.
Yeah.
He ratted out the turtles, but he's been seeing them torture Splinter. Yeah. And he's starting to feel pretty bad about it. So, Danny knows more than he's letting the turtles know right now. And when he leaves, Casey Jones doesn't really he's like, something's not right. So Casey Jones ends up following Danny to the Foot Clan headquarters. And we see Danny come up to talk to Splinter again, once like he's done in the past. And, Splinter's basically, I haven't seen you in a while, because he feels bad. Yeah. And he's like,
he's a kid.
Exactly. He's having some remorse here. And he's like, well, I just, I've been in my hideout or whatever, but his hideout basically has been the sewer.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, now do you feel like you need to hide from your new surrogate family? You know what I mean? Like you need to hide from both families, not only your surrogate family, but this new family that you have.
Your surrogate family, you mean his real family?
Yeah, I don't know what I meant to say was. I mean, his two basically Splinter's like, do you feel like you need to hire from both of your families? Because
Yeah.
in
Your
theory,
adopted family and your real family, you need to hide from both. So then what's the point of that,
yeah.
essentially?
And so basically, Splinter tells him the story of his past, his
Yeah.
origin story. He explains to him like, I used to be the pet of my owner Yoshi, and that Orokusaki was a man that him and Yoshi basically had a love triangle for his girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And here's where it gets a little bit different from the comics and so forth. But so Shredder and Splinter's real backstory is Splinter was Yoshi's pet, and then Yoshi was in a love triangle with a woman and another man. That man was Aruku Nagi. Aruku Nagi is the brother of Oroku Saki. So Oroku Nagi basically loves this woman too. The girl ends up picking Yoshi over Oroku Nagi, and he doesn't take it well at all, and he beats the shit out of her. And then Yoshi ends up finding out and beats the dog shit out of him, ends up killing him.
Yeah.
And then he moves to America, okay, because he's done with that life. And him and his new wife, what's called his lady, moved to America to live their life. They bring Splinter with them. Saki is the brother of Nagi. Saki, with hatred from a child, grows up and trains to go to America to find Yoshi and kill him, in which he does successfully in the comics. In the movie line, it was that basically that Saki ends up killing his love and killing Yoshi, and then the rat escapes. It's a little bit different. If that got confusing, I understand. I probably sounded confusing rereading it. But basically, Shredder in the comics is the brother of the person, is the brother of another individual that the incident didn't happen to. But in the movie, the incident happens to Shredder. So
Gotcha.
just basically, they just changed it up a little bit. Makes more sense. It's definitely different than what's in the comic book. Definitely what's different than the cartoon. Sucks, comic book and cartoon both start with a C, so I keep on like saying the wrong word.
So while the Foot Clan's heading to kill the Ninja Turtles, Casey Jones and Tatsu get into a fight. However, Casey Jones actually wins. So someone with, no background like the Ninja Turtles or like Tatsu ends up, winning in a fight with Tatsu.
Yeah, and after this fight, this is probably one of the cooler scenes of the movie because Sam Rockwell is in the movie. He's like the main like thug we get introduced to, and it's one of his earlier careers. But yeah, he comes in. He's just basically he's going to fight Casey Jones, and then Casey Jones like, "You really sure you want to do that?" And he's like, "Hey, here we're family. We're family. The Foot Clan's family." And Casey Jones is like, "This is family." This is what you consider family. That's family right there. Mind you, he points at Tatsu. Earlier in the film, we didn't talk about it, but Tatsu actually in the movie, Tatsu ends up beating a Foot Clan member to death.
Yeah.
And the movie, they recut it and added audio to it. They added a scene with them taking off the mask, and they added the audio to that scene where it's basically said he's still breathing. But in the movie, he actually was dead, and that's one of those things that they kind of cut.
Not in the movie.
In the movie, the original cut of the movie, he was dead.
Gotcha.
But when they went to re-edit it to make it a little bit more lighthearted,
I get what you're saying
now. They put the extra audio in there to make you believe that he's not dead because so he ends up not being dead. But that makes more sense when you get this scene where he's like, "This is family. You mean your family kills each other?"
Yeah,
it makes more sense when you say that. And this is when Splinter basically. Basically lets them know Shredder doesn't love you guys. He only is brainwashing you to do his bidding and his bidding only. He doesn't care you live or die. All he
Yeah.
cares about is what he wants to do, and that's it. So this person that is calling you, he's your father, he's not your father.
So Casey wins the fight against Tatsu, and Splinter, through his speech, wins the respect of the clan. However, while that's happening, the Ninja Turtles and the clan end up in kind of like a chase to a rooftop, where that is where the big fight is going to break out, essentially.
Yeah, so basically they've been ready for the Foot Clan, and they've been pretty successful, and they end up chasing everybody up to the Foot rooftop. And like you said, the big fight's happening, and now we get to see the Turtles face off against Shredder.
Yeah. Which he initially definitely gets the upper hand on them.
Oh yeah, he beats them. He beats them extremely. I mean, I will say, rewatching this as a child, like he whoops them for a while.
Yeah.
And it does suck because this scene is a little anticlimactic. Yes, we get to see the turtles get beat up a lot, but it does get a little anticlimactic in how the fight ends. But yeah, so they basically are not in theory like giving up, but
they're having a hard time keeping up. They're losing. They're losing until Splinter shows up.
Yeah, and then this is when I say anticlimactic, he basically charges to Splinter, and there's a little information dump here where we find out, like, he finds out that Splinter is the rat from Yoshi who scarred his face from the movie. And he ends up charging forward with him to stab him with his staff, while Splinter basically wraps nunchucks around him and ends up tossing him over the rooftop, and he ends up falling into a garbage truck, which then Casey Jones starts the garbage truck and ends up turning basically Shredder into a garbage cube.
Yeah.
Which is funny because somehow he survived it and came back for the second one. But, I don't know. But it is funny because in the comic book, the Shredder does die in the very first issue of the comic book, but they turned around to make Shredder the number one villain in the cartoon show, which it makes sense because he's really freaking cool looking.
Yeah. And it all ends happily because April gets her job back. The Foot Clan is now arrested, so they will do time for all the things that they did. And April and Casey finally end up together, which throws me off because I really feel like her and Raphael were like having a thing, but also he's like, technically he's much younger, I feel like.
Well, but also he's a turtle.
Well, yeah.
I mean, because to be honest, like it's some of the Ninja Turtle stuff gets a little weird.
I never picked up that her and Casey would have been a thing, but
but they were flirting all at the farmhouse.
Her and Raphael were flirting too.
Not at the farmhouse, no.
In general, in other scenes, though.
It's still, that's kind of like, that's the word, like,
I'm not saying she should have been with a turtle, but I'm just saying that was a little, like, they kind of picked up on the Casey and April fairy tale, like, a little late in the movie.
Yeah, I mean, even the new movie, the Mutant Mayhem movie, they definitely, teeter-totter on that, like, them, like, I don't know if you remember, Leonardo is
flirting with the girl,
Yeah, flirting with April, and it's just kind of like, that's y'all. That's bestiality. You know, let's. How about we not do that? Like, how about we not even poke fun at that? Like,
yeah, I agree.
I mean, that's a lot of that Facebook page I was on.
I can see where they got it from, I guess.
If I find any artwork, I'll sure.
As long as it doesn't flag us.
I'll upload here. I'll make sure that there is no nudity.
Yeah, but yeah, altogether, that is the happy ending that we get. I mean, I really like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie, in the franchise altogether. It definitely is a really big franchise, as you dove very deep into.
I know. I'm sorry. I went on like 30
fine.
minutes for it.
But yeah, I mean, altogether, I like the movie. I got a thing for kids' movies, so it's very rare that I'm going to be like, this sucks.
Well, that's the thing is, it's like I brought up, like, does it still hold up? And the thing is, I will be honest, it has been a hot minute since I've seen it. It has been a while. I mean, I'm talking about, when I say a while, it's been about 10 years. Probably. I mean, literally, I haven't rewatched this since the Michael Bay films came out. And that literally that's how long it's been since I've seen this. And I really didn't like those at all. And, like, And that was one thing is like people were hating on the Michael Bay films. Like, it's not like the original. And they'll make fun of like, oh, you're talking about this is what's so great cinema. And they'll make fun of like the second one and the Vanilla Ice Go Ninja Go rap scene.
Yeah.
It's like, but this first one, it's different. Like, this really is a good movie.
Yeah.
It's very entertaining.
Yeah, I think it definitely holds up.
100% holds up.
That wasn't our question. It definitely is.
As good as
it's
we
as good as
remember.
we remember it. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I mean, the thing is, the first one, yes, the second one gets hokey. I still like the second one. I still love the second one. I've watched that so many times. It's a phenomenal movie. I love the second one. The first one, is the better film. I just have more nostalgic feeling for the second one just because it was my favorite as a child. But I watched this so many times. I actually bought my very first copy from Video Villa. I remember going in there and I was telling my mom, I was like, "Man, I had probably rented the movie for like the 20th time." And I was walking up with my mom and I was just like, "Mama, you want me?" I was like, and I was little. I mean, I was little. I was like, probably in kindergarten or something like that. I was like, it'd be really nice if we just had, if we just had this movie, then I won't have to rent it all the time. And my mom was like, "Well, okay, let's buy it."
Yeah.
And I guess I'm assuming they had used copies or something like
Yeah.
that there. And my mom just bought a previously used copy, which was the copy I used all the time. But that was kind of like a fun thing for me. Like when I was little, like, oh, I own the copy I used to rent all the time.
Yeah.
Now, was it the exact same copy? Because there's probably more than one copy. Probably not. I mean, but still the fact of like the copy I used to rent it all the time for Video Villa, then would return and buy get my copy from Video Villa.
Yeah.
Like I said, it was just, sentimental for me. I watch the cartoon all the time. I will tell you what, rewatching the cartoon with Grayson, I couldn't remember a damn thing about the cartoon. I really don't remember anything from it. A lot of it was just new news to me. I couldn't remember anything. But the movies, I remember like they were the back of my hand.
Yeah, it's definitely, like I said, it's a movie that still holds up as well as it is good as at least I recall. I think it definitely still hits both age groups. Yeah, I mean, it's one that is worth having in the vault.
Well, yeah, and the thing is, I mean, it's a $15 billion franchise. Who knew that 35 years later, over 35 years later, we still be talking about the first film. We're still talking about the cartoon. Just a couple of years ago, we just got amazing video game, which was the Teenage Mutant Turtles Shredder's Revenge. Fantastic video game. I mean, and then we got Mutant Mayhem, a good movie. Does it have the same feel as the original? No. Is it different than the Ninja Turtles we grew up with? Yes, but
it's still evolving.
It's evolving. It's still good. Rise of the Ninja Turtles, a cartoon show, which is the one that is currently going on, was really good. But now they're bleeding into the Mutant Mayhem series, cartoon show. I mean, it's just crazy to think that there's just two guys that were just drawing comics for fun in their apartment, and it would turn out to being this humongous franchise that people would grow to love so much out of a just simple joke. It's a Cinderella story, if anything. I think it's amazing.
Yeah. So thank you guys. We'll come to an end with that, with our Cinderella story containing Ninja Turtles. But thank you guys for joining us for episode 42, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, directed by Steve Barron. Is it as good as we remember? And we both say yes. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow. Please feel free to leave us a review. We definitely appreciate the feedback. And I think that's it.
Oh, website.
Our website. Can't forget about that. VideoVillaEntertainment.com. You can get your link to all of our social medias, places you can listen and or watch our episodes, including this one and plenty of great past episodes. You can find all that there. And we will see you guys next time.